I don't say anymore, but I'm the longest serving professor at Dickinson State. Thrilled to be here, talk to you about the really dynamic and rapidly growing field of esports. Today, we're going to talk about the various careers within the industry, the different paths. We're going to go beyond the surface level to really talk about what it takes to build a successful career in esports. Esports has evolved from a niche hobby to a global phenomenon, right? Commanding massive audiences, generating, found out last year, over $1 billion. It's a growing sport for sure. Thank you, Josh, as your role of an esports coach. I read a lot of different research, and the coaches are, again and again, they call the coaches the unsung heroes in esports. So thank you for everything that you do as a coach. Am I a gamer? That would be a good question to ask. Am I? I am not a gamer. There we go. Thank you. Thanks, Sam. This is there. Okay, great. I'm not a gamer. I am a cowgirl. I ride horses for fun. This is the Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota. It's the first park that Theodore Roosevelt started, so we're really proud of that. I'm an entrepreneur. I've taught entrepreneurship for decades, organizational behavior, which is the psychology part of business. We'll talk about that here today. I've done a lot of training around the state and around the country, and I'm a national award-winning journalist. So a little bit about me. Not going to say that I am, an expert in esports by any means, but I'm an expert in some other stuff for sure. So to learn about a little bit about esports, I watched Mythic Quest. What a terrible show. It was awful, but I sat through 2 sessions of it, and I think you guys probably believe it's a terrible show as well. But, I learned a lot. Apple TV is kind of an interesting sort of it's comedy, so who knows how much of it is real. But an interesting view if you get a chance to look at that. I want to talk a little bit about Dickinson State's what we call marketable degrees, right? So the links are here for you. We have a Bachelor of Business Administration, shameless plug for Dickinson State, right? In Esports Administration, and a Bachelor of Applied Science in Esports and Business. But those are some growing and kind of fun majors that we have at Dickinson State. It's an unconventional sport, right? It's not so unconventional though. Just last month, I subscribed to the Chronicle of Higher Education, and just last month, maybe a week ago, there's an article, Winthrop University in North Carolina announced that it was starting to give scholarships and have a college team playing cornhole. What's cornhole? Tossing a bean bag. Big tournaments are now being hosted on ESPN. To give you a coach's quote, what makes a good cornhole player? Somebody who's been around the game a long time, knows the game, knows the mental side of it, because it's not just about putting every bag in the hole. There's a lot of players that make this a lot more difficult to do that. So it can be a mental game in the long run. Some games can go for 20 or 30 minutes. Some games can go for 5 minutes. So 20 or 30 minutes can actually mentally exhaust you. This was February 17th, so just a few weeks ago, the coach of the cornhole team at Winthrop University, I'm like, oh my God, 20 to 30 minutes is going to mentally exhaust you. I'm sure you guys are like laughing about that. Like, that is crazy. You're throwing a beanbag and you're like, oh, I'm just so mentally exhausted from that. Kind of interesting. So now you know what I know about esports, right? But I know a lot about business. I know a lot about business psychology. I know a lot about a lot of other things. So I want to find out what you know about esports. So we're going to move on to a little short 4-question quiz. What year was the first recognized esports tournament held? Minute, pause, yes. 1980. Okay, I think that's pretty likely. The next question. Who is widely recognized as the first prominent esports player? And it's Fatality, and that's actually how you pronounce that. I've got a helper here with me. It's helping me do the technology. I'm like, looking at her like, I had to look up how to pronounce that. The next question, what country is considered a powerhouse in professional League of Legends? Give me a second. South Korea. Who knew? Maybe you knew. I didn't know. And my final one is, what is the highest prize pool ever recorded in esports history as of 2023? So 2024 just started. It's probably going to be higher. Look at those numbers. I'm sure just logically you can guess it's going to be the highest number. It is $34.3 million. Crazy. It's difficult to get into the career of being a professional esports player. Studies show it's more difficult than being drafted into the NFL. Crazy. The both sports skew young. An NFL player's average career is 3.3 years. A professional esports player, and again, this is fairly new, so these numbers might change, but professional esports, it's 5 years. So the world's guy. Here's a little tidbit. My students love this when I teach. I try to bring in a little interesting tidbit every day. Today, we're talking about age of people. Today, the world's oldest living man died. Right? In Venezuela, Juan Vicente Perez, 114 years old, died today. In another month, he would have been 115. So just a little bit of trivia for you. Doesn't really have anything with our talk, but we are talking about age. And this is a sport that definitely skewed down. So obviously, I'm doing this talk because being a professional gamer is only part of the picture. I'm very familiar with football, so I'm going to make some of those analogies as we go through our 50 minutes here today. Think about a head football. Think about an NFL team. Think about a head office, trainers, analysts, announcers. Those are real careers, right? It's not like I need to be a professional Rocket League player. There's just a lot. There's an ecosystem around that that is pretty full of opportunities for anyone who wants to be involved in esports. Esports teams have to work out, they have nutritionists, they have to, be at the gym. We're going to talk about burnout and some psychological issues. In the esports ecosystem, most teams and most companies are young, right? They're young companies, maybe 3 or 4 years old. And so if you go to work for one of these organizations that we're going to talk about, you need to make an impact right away. What value do you provide? So those skills are called KSAs. KSAs. Knowledge, the first one. Skills and abilities. We talk about that a lot in business. What do you provide? Knowledge, skills, and abilities. Most of you probably started in high school or even younger. Start with a portfolio, making sure it represents your growth. You volunteered or were engaged in your networks, help either played on or help the esports team at your school. Very disciplinary, interdisciplinary nature. And as I was thinking about this, it felt like it fell into three areas, kind of a triad. Number one is the business piece. Number two is technology. And number three is psychology. Okay, so there's the professional esports players, but outside of that, you got the business of it, the technology of it, and the psychology of it. Career paths, as we said, professional gamer, esports coach, the unsung heroes. I have to say that again for Josh. Esports management, event organization, content creation, streaming, game development, all of those things. So let's talk a little bit about navigating some of those challenges. Challenges in esports are physical and mental health concerns. Okay. Job security is constantly changing. You have to constantly be learning. If you step out for a year, it's very difficult to step back in. And then market saturation, just the concept that a lot of people diving into this business right now. So maybe 5 years ago, there wasn't as much competition for jobs, but there certainly is a lot of competition for positions today. So I would say those are three of the probably biggest challenges in esports. But, pursue your passion, absolutely. Backed by education. Again, shameless plug for esports degrees. Backed by education and strategic planning, you can do this. You can be a part of something that's just super amazing. It is a high stress environment. Again, mental health issues, job security, and an increasingly competitive industry. It's critical to maintain a work-life balance. Your generation knows that. Gen Z, some of you might be X, but I'm saying most of you are X or Z, Alpha generation, sometimes it's called. You're all about that. Good for you. I'm 63. I had a birthday about a week ago. And, work-life balance meant nothing to me. It was, 90% work, 10% home and family and all of the other things that really matter. Your generation is amazing. You're like, nope, these have to balance out, or I'm out. Peace out, right? I'm going to find something else to do. So keeping that in mind, just stressing that, I think is important. Being happy, pursuing your passion. So you want to be happy, right? Research shows that there's a link between happiness and a long life. Do you want to live to be like that Venezuela guy, 114 years old? Research shows there's a significant important link between happiness and a long life. Major studies show that happier people live longer. These are really tough studies to conduct because, as you know, they're longitudinal, right? You can't just go, oh, how old are you? And you died at 90. The person you go to their funeral, like, were they happy? These are really tough. You have to follow people for a long time and then look at their death rates. Really tough. So nuns hold the answer. Crazy, right? Nuns make a great natural experiment because they live the same routine. They live in the same area. They have similar diets. They are married. They don't have children. They do similar work and activities. So they're kind of like their own little ecosystem there, right? So what these researchers did was they asked in 1932, so almost 100 years, they asked 180 novices in Milwaukee, the Sisters of Notre Dame, to write short sketches of their lives. 180 novices back then in 1932. We have that data today, and they're using it today. So the first sketch I'm going to show you, again, there were 180. The first one I was going to show you was that this nun wrote, God started off my life well by bestowing on me grace of inestimable value. The past year, which I spent as a candidate at Notre Dame, has been a very happy one. Now I look forward with eager joy to receiving the holy habit of Our Lady and to a life of union with love divine. Look at those positive words like happy, grace, joy. Okay, that was one of the 180. Then I'm going to show you one on the other end of the spectrum. This nun wrote, I was born on September 26, 1909, the eldest of 7 children, 5 girls, 2 boys. My candidate year was spent in a mother house, teaching chemistry, second year Latin at Notre Dame Institute. With God's grace, I intend to do my best for our very this is factual. Children lived in my home when I was growing up is very, very factual. So note the positive words in one, note that it's sort of a joyless, I guess you would call it, kind of a negative skew to the other one. So can you guess which nun lived longer? What they did was they divided them up into happy nuns. They didn't call them unhappy nuns. Say that, right? They call them not so happy nuns, right? So happy nuns, not so happy nuns. How did they determine that? They determined that by this file, this little paragraph that they wrote when they first started in the order. So let's look at which nuns lived longer. That happy sketch, that happy writing this nun did, she lived to be 98 in wonderful health. The not so happy nun died after stroke at age 59. Well, you can say, okay, that's 2 nuns, but out of the 180, again, they divided into happy nuns, not so happy nuns. They quantified the positive and negative words or feelings within all of 180 sketches. And again, so this is a major ability to do research on 180 people who basically live the same life. Okay, so after quantifying that, they found out that 90% of the happiest nuns were still alive at age 85. Crazy, right? The happiest nuns lived about 9 years longer than the less happy nuns. Now, that's a huge effect. 9 years, that's a long time, especially when you think about a pack of cigarettes a day takes only 3 years off your life. So happy, unhappy, not so happy makes a huge difference. So you want to be happy. We're going to talk a little bit about the psychology of that as you pursue your career. Again, esports, a global audience, 495 million people, revenues surpassing $1 billion, lots of diversity in esports careers. Esports encompasses a lot of different domains: marketing and human resources, finance, shoutcasters, coaches, event coordinators, obviously professional players, but also, did you know that there's esports beauticians? Okay. physical therapists that cater to the unique needs of these professional players and teams. So let's look at some of those careers specifically. Okay, finance and accounting. Okay, somebody has to handle that. As a business professor, I always say everything's money, right? Everything is about money. And so finance and accounting, if you're like, I'm going to get my CPA, but I'm a gamer too. You can blend those two things together. I played esports in college, but I'm drawn to the world of accounting, and that would kind of balance off in a way. But can I find a career there? Absolutely, you can. Okay, managing the finances of a team, managing financial growth, sales and partnerships, working on acquiring partnerships, sponsors, all of the things that contribute and have contributed to the growth of these sports. Very important. Agents, just like, Hollywood agents, product managers, important. Legal services, oh my gosh, lots of contracts, right? Lots of law. It's an emerging industry, and as that industry is maturing, then we start getting into legal issues big time. So if you want to go to law school, but you want to focus on, after your 4-year degree, but you want to focus on esports, that's really your passion, you can totally blend those two together, particularly with a solid undergrad degree that is going to, set you up for success for sure. Graphic designers, obviously logos, banners, promotional materials, all of those things are really important. Marketing, public relations. Esports does require, in particular, skilled marketers to engage people in their brand and engage with fans, because it is so new. You get a lot of those esports, right? And I would say, cornhole. So, there's an answer. Absolutely. And I hope that this presentation will help you find that answer. Okay, couple more. Human resources. I hope some of this company is getting pretty big. Team dynamics, ensuring player well-being. Game designers and developers. That sounds like fun to me. I'm a super creative person. So if I were to go back in time, start my career again, I think for sure that's where it would be. Nutritionist, important. Psychologist, mental health, coping with the pressure of competitive gaming. It's not a insignificant issue. It is a significant issue. As I mentioned, lawyers, legal advisors, esports management, community managers, working with your community, your ecostructure. And I added something just later. I put this together about a week ago, and then I started thinking about a good friend of mine who has a son that's disabled that is a gamer, and I know you have a session later in this program that will address this pretty specifically, but disability coordinator. How many disabled people are gamers? So I wonder, in the US and the United Kingdom, those two combined, nearly 1/3 of gamers self-identify as being disabled, nearly double the amount of disabled people in the general population is about 16%. So gamers, it's about 1/3, almost double, right? And so that's really important. Despite these numbers and statistics, developers have really struggled to prioritize various accessibility needs of their users. Check out Verbit, Verbit for more information, or ablegamers.org. Had some really great information on the intriguing field of combating social isolation through play. And that might be the route that you might want to take with your career. If you're curious about the esports industry, there are just lots of different places that you can go. The best one that I found that I saw was, and you're probably familiar with this, if you're not, certainly go in there, mess around, look at what's happening and going on, is hitmarker.com. And they are, there's amazing, there's actually over 200 different jobs that they describe, and here the KSAs, remember, knowledge, skills, and abilities that you need to have at the ready for those jobs. And so that's a great place to go, hitmarker.com. Get an idea of what each position entails. They also have on there what the pay is, how competitive that particular, but yeah, there's just a lot of opportunity, again, given the correct base and knowledge in what you're doing. So if you're curious about an esports career that does not mean necessarily a professional esports player, or with that whole 5-year thing as an average of an esports career, what's your second career going to be after you retire from being a competitive, potentially a professional competitive esports player? But have that in your back pocket, to have that education in your back pocket, really pretty crucial. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the psychology of the idea of sports. So there's a concept called verging and corfing. Okay, verging and corfing. So they're acronyms that have kind of been made into verbs. This has been around for a while. This is sports psychology. Again, really interesting area to go into would be sports psychology. Definitely support you in that at our degree, other degrees around the country in the area of esports. So think about that. If that's something you're like, maybe I want to go into psychology. I'm really interested in group theory. I'm really interested in this whole stress, that burnout aspect. Maybe you're really interested in the concept of verging and corfing. Okay, so if again, I'm going to refer to football. Okay, so if I'm watching the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl ends, there's a commercial right after the Super Bowl, or the division championships, or whatever it might be. Up pops the commercial. What's that commercial going to try to sell you? It's going to try to sell you a t-shirt, a hat, Who won the Super Bowl last year, Sam? Do we even know? We're awful, right? It's terrible. I don't even know. It wasn't the Vikings, I can tell you that. I'm up here in North Dakota, the upper North Midwest. So I'm a Viking fan. I can 100% tell you it wasn't the Vikings. But whoever won, they pop up and they're going to try to sell you a hat, a t-shirt. There's a 1-800 number, and you're like, wow, that was really fast. Well, they had the 100,000 of those hats made for either team. Let's say it was Green Bay and the Vikings. Would that be an awesome Super Bowl for me? Anyway, and the Vikings won, of course. This is my fantasy, so the Vikings are going to win. Up pops this ad for the Minnesota Vikings hats, t-shirts, blah, 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 Super Bowl. And you want one, right? So you order one right off the bat. We can get it delivered by tomorrow or 2 days. So you order one, but guess what? They've already made just as many Green Bay hats and t-shirts, and those are the ones that get donated to developing countries. So sometimes, every now and then, I'll see a picture of a village or something in a developing country, and they're like, oh, I don't think Green Bay won that Super Bowl, but those shirts, they don't go to waste. They actually get donated. So if you're a world traveler, you might see some of those really interesting shirts that you're like, I don't remember that happening. Okay, so verging corfing. Let's get back to that. This all comes into a full circle here. Verging stands for basking in reflected glory. Basking in reflected glory. So when our team wins, we're like, or Dickinson State. Let's say Dickinson State. We are a really good football team, right? So the Dickinson State, we're called the Blue Hawks. Dickinson State wins on Saturday. I come to school on Monday, got a few football players in my class, and I'm like, man, let's say we won. Okay. We did such a good job on that field, didn't we? Oh my God, that last play we did was so amazing. Notice I'm saying the word we as though I actually on the field, which I actually was not on the field, but I'm basking in that reflected glory. I am 200% more likely after a win, basketball, esports, football, whatever the sport that our Blue Hawks play in, to wear Blue Hawk clothes on Monday. Over 200%. Not just me, but nationally studies, over 200% more likely to wear your Minnesota Vikings, whatever it might be. So what does that have to do with a career? That's marketing, right? That's knowing how that works, how people bask in reflected glory. We did that play. We won that game. We did such an amazing job. Same thing is true in esports. This concept of basking in reflected glory is the same. Our team, you probably have players that you follow, right? And then you'll use terms like, we did this, we did that last 10 minutes, just weren't we? We were on fire. Exactly. So that's verging, basking in reflective glory. Totally don't forget that, because that is a huge, huge part. If you're in marketing or in HR, you're in any type of management, you're going to want to be familiar with the concept of basking in reflective glory. So it's been around for, I would say 20, 25 years, that particular acronym. It's been around about 3 or 4 years, and somebody said, yeah, but what's the opposite of that? What happens when we lose? So some brilliant marketing researcher somewhere did the studies and came up with the concept of corfing. And corfing stands for cutting off reflected failure. Okay, so when we win, we won. We made that field goal. We did that block. We whatever. Okay, so I was out there on the field in my head, right? I was out there at the Super Bowl in my head, playing for the Vikings. It's we, it's us. Did you see what we did? If we lose, then we're corfing. Okay, corfing, cutting off, and sometimes you'll see it phrased as casting off reflected failure. And that means that when our team loses, we're like, well, the wind of that football game just kept that, we would have got that field goal with a crazy wind, right? Or even better, that referee, okay? That referee, that umpire, that, whatever it might be, oh my gosh, they were against us. We would win, but that referee, didn't call a fumble or whatever it might be. So we're blaming something outside of our team. Okay, so it's the wind, it was the weather, it was the that we had to play away instead of home game. Dickinson State basketball went into the NAI not the finals, but quarterfinals, something like that. And we had to play an away game. It was like, what? That's going to be a disadvantage to us. And we did lose. And it's like, if we'd have been at home with our cheer team and our people there, so we're cutting off or casting off that failure. It was because that's one part of corfing. Another area of corfing is a little bit more significant, I guess, and you might want to be kind of familiar with this as well, where you're just so tired of your team losing. So the Minnesota Vikings, the franchise, started in 1961, the year I was born. Again, I'm an upper Midwest person. We would go to games over in Minneapolis. So I'm not likely to switch teams. My mother, who is a fair weather fan of the Vikings, so she fell in love with Brett Favre, and then she goes about Green Bay Packers. I mean, she's all over, like, who's winning this season will be my mother's team. Okay. About halfway through the NFL season, usually for professional football, Minnesota Vikings, yeah, they're looking pretty good. My mom's all on board. Then they start losing, they start getting injuries, whatever. She goes, oh, now I'm rooting for Green Bay Packers. Now I'm rooting for the Denver Broncos. Now I'm, she was like, there's no loyalty there. That is the epitome of the other type of cutting off reflected failure. Is you like to switch teams, not my team anymore. I'm going to go to a new team. That's bad in esports, right? Because then your followers, they're kind of dropping off or switching to new teams, new players that they're following on Twitch, whatever it might be. So yes, that's not what you want to happen. And obviously we know that people follow winning teams for sure, but there's a psychology to it. And if you're interested in that at all, definitely look at corfing, look at verging. I really love that concept. I think it's something that would be super fun to follow as a career. That whole sports psychology, sports marketing would be really fun. Or as I said, be an attorney, be an accountant, be whatever you want to be. Get that degree, an undergrad degree in esports with a concentration, with a double major, and just make yourself marketable that way and start working on it now. It's really important to start building that portfolio. And in the esports world, there is a lot of connections, right? So making those connections when you're pretty young to start off doing that and making those friendships, making those linkages is really important to your success. And again, as I mentioned earlier, these are typically fairly new companies. So you need to make an impact right away. And they're oftentimes small companies, maybe 10 employees, maybe 20 employees. So you're going to be doing, which is good. I would encourage you to start off with a small company because then you are really getting your hands into everything. A company with 1,000 employees, 500 employees, you kind of pigeonholed into, this is what you do, right? Smaller companies like we have in North Dakota. Get this, you guys. 90% of all the companies in North Dakota are 10 or fewer employees. And we're a very entrepreneurial state with a lot of small companies. So you go to work for a company that has 10 employees. Great. That is going to give you so much more experience in so many different areas. You're going to find out what you like. You're going to be able to, you'll stay with that small company. That company will grow to 1,000 employees while you're there. But you're going to get that experience. Our graduates that go into banking and small banks in North Dakota, they really have such a broad range of experience, which is super great. And I would encourage you to not overlook those small companies. So, I'm going to go for a big organization, a big esports company. Just really think about the smaller companies. You're going to get 3, 4, 5 years. You're going to get a lot more hands-on, terrific experience. And remember, esports, those 3 things, right? It is very important. The psychology of it is critical for sure. And it's really important that you know the business side, and it's really important that you know the technology side. So the fact that you've been gamers since you were in 5th or 6th grade is really great. So you've got that experience, you've got some credibility, which maybe I don't. But again, been teaching for a long time, and it's really hard for me to accept that esports is different in any substantial way to the NFL, to Major League Baseball, to college sports, right? I'm having a little hard time with cornhole, to be honest, but that's okay. But if you look at those mature industries and you look at the pieces of the puzzle there, maybe not as much technology, but absolutely that's creeping into football. It's creeping into baseball. Watch a football game and you'll see the fake lines. I call them fake lines, right? Those laser lines on the on the field. And look at baseball, they know exactly how many miles per hour that pitch came through at. So technology is creeping into those sports. You're solid technology, right? And you're just allowing sports into the sports piece of these sports. So if you have any questions about that website that I gave you is awesome. It's over 200 careers and specific. Here's what you need. Here's the skills that you need. Here's how much you're going to get paid. Here's how many jobs there are in this field. Getting more competitive, but 200, that's a lot of really opportunity, I think, for you to look at. So success requires dedication, perseverance, and just like any other sport, truly a love of the game, right? If you're like, I got to sit down and play a couple of hours for craft or whatever, you don't like it, walk away. But if you love the game, it's always, if it's baseball, if it's football, if it's esports, really that's where you start to forge your own path in a super exciting industry where the options are truly endless. So that is why I titled my talk, Virtual Battles to Real Success. I think it's just a concept that we need to keep in mind. And also, I think there's some key sort of trigger points that triggered me. Oh my gosh, 5-year career. What do I do about that? I see Josh is on the line. We're going to ask for some questions, see how things are going with you guys. Thank you for your attention and your engagement today. I had so much fun putting this together. I feel like I learned a lot, but I also feel it blends in with the stuff that I already know. So I was really glad to bring you my story, one of my favorite stories about the nuns. I think it's really apropos to what you're looking at. So I'll kind of turn it over to Josh and you as audience members and open the floor to any questions that you might have or any discussion points that you'd like me to elaborate on. Thanks.
I think there was a missed opportunity. The session should have been called Nuns and Cornhole. Like I just think I think that would be attention getting. Well, it's actually so I had a potential esports recruit once that was an international cup stacking winner.
Yes.
Like cup stacking. And so like, and this, which I've heard dabble that maybe that could be an Olympic sport. So who knows? That could be something.
Actually, there's been some talk of esports being in the Olympics, but the anti-side, the side that says it's not a sport, it's not that they're saying it's not a sport. They're saying that it isn't about world peace. There's a lot of like kind of a lot going on in esports. So they're like the ethos of the Olympics was started for world peace. So they more don't have a problem with it being esports. They more have a problem with it being clashes.
Well, I mean, curling is way more controversial than esports. If curling's in the
oh, for sure. And cornhole, oh my God.
Can you imagine? Well, and that's actually, I mean, you hit on a little bit of this, and later on, we have Mike Anderson from Fit Gamer who's going to be talking more about the like athletic side. But I know that's a lot of pushback that we get regarding esports is whether or not it's actually like athletic. Isn't actually are you an athlete because you're not doing things physical? And people have a problem putting that label of athlete on a varsity esports player. When they're not taking into account like all of the mental acuity and the actions per minute. Like some of the top like league players and stuff, I mean, are like 10 like meaningful actionable clicks per second. 10 per second. Like it's like it's a very impressive thing, but they also don't attribute those sorts of things to other things. There's a ESPN did a study about theater. I'm got a theater background, and they did a study of Aladdin, where one of the guys who plays the genie in Aladdin, they put heart rate monitors and stuff and did this whole thing, and he had like sustaining like 160 beats per minute for like a period of 8 minutes while singing, while doing all this stuff. And so if you're not going to call esports athletes, at least call our musical theater majors athletes, if you're going to pick and choose labels. But so if anybody has any questions, they can definitely put it within the Q&A section of this. Otherwise, I'm just going to have a conversation with you, ask some questions that I've had, as I was listening to the session. First of all, thank you so much for being here and presenting for us for sure. A lot of your, sort of points are about how majors, there are majors that are not esports related, like by nature of what the major is, but can be transformed into an esports career. And then there are esports majors that can sort of like, bridge the field, kind of like I talked about in our session about the esports and business degree. Do you have a lot of students that shift their majors over time? I mean, you've worked with so many students over the years. I mean, is that good or bad? I mean, I know for me, academics is like the most important thing for my esports players. If they fail out of their classes, they cannot perform for the team. And so what is the importance of choosing your major, and is it okay to switch your major?
Oh, absolutely. This generation, again, and I love Gen Z. Don't get me wrong. I've been teaching for 35 years, and I absolutely look forward to walking in the classroom. This is such a vibrant generation, right? They're not just sitting there, oh, I'm going to take notes. They're like engaged, and it's really an awesome thing to see. So they are definitely switching majors at a higher rate than previous generations. And I think that some of that has to do with just exploring. If you have to spend an extra year in school, I mean, at Dickinson State, I don't know about the other programs around the country, but you can combine it with a master's degree and do a 4-year undergrad and then do an MBA, at the end of the day. So that might be something to do too. It's like, I'm going to get my esports degree, business esports, and then I'm going to get a master's in business administration to layer on top of that. And you can do that, at least at our school, in 5 years, which I think is really cool. But yeah, this generation is, they're job hoppers. Their average first job is 14 months. They're changing majors, but they're, there's at any school, there's going to be a core, like your gen ed, then your first year and a half doing those, touch on that esports, and if it clicks with you, then definitely switch to that major, because it is a business major and everything is business. 100%.
Well, and it sort of seems like it translates to the, you know, the whole job hopping thing and switching majors. Like I think a lot of Gen Z, it's really about, I don't want to say boredom, but like it's about learning the next thing. Like okay, I learned that, I'm done. I'm moving on to the next thing. Or I want to have a diverse skill set. And so that's why, like, I know with esports specifically, like even within our program, you have so many different areas. So with some traditional sports, I mean, there's only so many job duties that are assigned to that core thing. You know, but with esports, you have the broadcasting element, you have the graphic design, you have the website, you have the stats, you know, which is other sports. You have, you know, the development, you have event planning, you have like there's so many things that you can be involved with, and I think it does lend itself to that sort of like switching mode of I want to learn something new, I want to learn something new, I want to learn something new.
Oh my gosh, can I give you a little piece of trivia?
Sure.
I'm such a trivia queen, right? So well, yeah, I'm a fount of useless information. I'm really good at Jeopardy. So I love these little like side things. And I just read a study that the number one fear in the work world for Gen Z is boredom. That's their number
Yeah.
one fear, boredom. And this is like, oh my God, you know, how could a day in an esports career, whatever, you know, area you want to go off, how could that ever be boring?
Yeah.
Right? There's always something new to learn. There's always something new to do. There's always new games coming out. There's always new challenges. And if this generation's number one fear is boredom, hey, this is an awesome degree to get. This is an awesome career to follow.
I don't want to say that you're wrong in that statistic, but I think it's number two because I think the number one fear is making a live phone call. I think
Ordering pizza that you can't
I'm
do it with
like,
an app. Oh my God, calling
I mean,
grandma. That's mine.
even now, I just think, you know, I'm getting older and I'm thinking about my life and I'm thinking, you know, like if I have to call 911, can I
Right.
just text them? You know, couldn't I just text the ambulance? Do I have to
Right.
call?
Texting ability about 3 months ago. So yes, Josh, you can now text 911 and
That's incredible. I absolutely love it.
everybody
I'm sure.
that's just new and brand new. So everybody that's in a different state,
Yeah.
you know, let us know. Can you text 911 because you can here, you can in the Great White North.
That's awesome. You know, one of the things you mentioned was like, you know, you talked a little bit about like professional sports and stuff like that. And I think a lot of, you know, a lot of students that come into, you know, a university setting and they're getting a scholarship for an athletic, you know, field. They're in football or baseball or esports. I mean, the main thought is they're going pro. They're going to be the next greatest thing. And statistically, I mean, there's only so many of those positions, and there's only so much of that around. And so that's why I really push the importance of that degree first. Like it is. I love that you're a passionate esports player, and I love that you are involved with, you know, all the aspects of the program, and that you're doing well, and you got team dynamics. But if you're not graduating with a degree, why are you here? You know.
And even they talk about best case scenario, the data that it gave you on the NFL typical length of a career and the professional esports 5 years. Dude, you know, if you're like this guy that lives beyond 114, you got that's like 109 more years you gotta fill up, you know, and then deduct out maybe 20 for being growing up, and you're at 90 years you got potentially, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't want to be bored, this is definitely the place to go. But back to one point that you said about our esports players, athletes, I would look at NASCAR. You know, when I first
Yeah.
started following NASCAR, I'm like, they're sitting in a car. I mean, they need to know how to do that. But holy smokes, you do not have any idea of what the physical toll of.
Yeah, absolutely. I was reading a study. I think it was something like, and I don't know if it was NASCAR specific. It was some racing driver thing that was like typically they have like 100 beats per minute is like their like kind of our average rate. Esports is like 150 to 160 at peak times. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying. But we're also adding in a racing simulator with NASCAR in it, so hopefully we'll kind of bridge that gap. Yeah, and again, that also lends itself to, like you said, careers with research or psychology is where, you know, can you study these? Can we do studies on actions per minute or eye motion tracking when it comes to, you know, playing games and stuff, or rehabilitation? I mean, I know a faculty member whose spouse he was using video games as rehabilitation. That was like prescribed to him that you need to, you know, keep that mental acuity and stuff. And so I think that's definitely a thing.
You know, you go into nursing homes today and you'll see gaming going
Yep,
on. It's
absolutely.
like any hour of the day. So You know, if you're into like you're doing, you're like, I'm interested in healthcare. Oh my gosh, you know, this is amazing to work with like senior citizens and you know, getting them up to speed and feeling even confident, playing with their grandkids online, you know, using their Switch to play with their grandkids from, you know, thousands of miles away. These are all really, really good things. But I think that you do need to be legit, right? You need to be a player. You can talk the talk, you can play the game. You don't necessarily have to be a professional level player, but it's awesome that you're in that sport in college because you're credible.
Yeah, you definitely have to have a passion for something. It doesn't matter what your passion. It doesn't matter if it's varsity level play or something in regards, but you have to have a passion for something. And again, the academic piece is so important. And one just the last thing I'll mention is, you know, there's a lot of stereotypes around esports. It's like, well, all esports players are computer science majors or all esports players, and like that's just not what we see. And that's not what we see even traditional sports. I mean, you know, you are a psychology major. You're not a football player. You're a psychology major that plays football. We have nursing majors that are on our Valorant team. We've, you know, criminal justice majors, you know, and stuff like that. So it's not just about that. So that's why, you know, I think your presentation regarding the vast amount of different degrees, the vast amount of different careers, and how there's crossover there. Hopefully, students can help find their passions through one of those avenues, whichever angle they come from. They're able to sort of bridge that gap.
Absolutely. That website, I mean, I went down a rabbit hole. Different careers, and you can look at the KSAs, and I was down a rabbit hole for hours. And it's not even anything I ever intended to do or be, but I was so fascinating. Really.
Well, we'll definitely have to have you back then. Now you're fascinated. Now you got the bug. Now we can get you back and do another presentation. Well, Dr. Dragseth, thank you so much for being here. For anybody who's looking for the next session, it's going to be with Marty Weatherall. It's a great session. He's a co-founder and CEO of League OS. It's sort of a, you know, not only a gaming platform as far as tournament management, but also sort of a matchmaking service for colleges and college or high school athletes who are looking to get into the collegiate scene. So it's going to be a great session for you to learn more about how to make those awesome marketable profiles and really get offers from institutions and get you know, be attractive to those institutions to getting those offers. So go to levelmeupnow.com.
If we have a minute, is if you're an esports on an esports team in a collegiate answer, talk to your faculty about it. Say, this is something that's important to me. This is something that I do. You know, engage your 60-year-old faculty member in, you know, because they're like, oh, it's a football game on Saturday. Like, hey, guess what I'm interested in? So
yeah, invite them to a game. Like it might be the first time they've ever seen a game, but they might not even know how to access it. Send them the Twitch link. Send them a text message. You don't have to call them. You don't have to call them. You just have to text them.
Yeah,
all right. Thank you so much, Deb. I appreciate it. And we'll see everybody in the next session.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye.